Hey, this is Avante,
I'm Eli, and this is hosted by Posh.
an intimate series where we talk with the most influential people in the event space and hear about the movements they've built.
Where'd you grow up, Evita?
So I grew up in Pennsylvania, a small town called Hermitage.
Hermitage. Okay. How'd your family end up there?
Well, my dad's family is from Italy, so his dad came over on a boat.
Okay.
And then my mom was just in Sharon, PA. They're Slovakian.
Okay.
And then they met, and that happened to me.
Wow. And how was it growing up in Hermitage?
It was a small town, so you know how that goes.
Yeah.
There's not much to do.
And so what made you think about like swimwear or the big city as kind of your goal?
Yeah, so it wasn't really my goal to begin with. I mean, I thought I was going to be like a soccer star back in the day.
Really?
Yes, but then I decided to go to business school
Okay.
in Pittsburgh, and then my dad's like, okay. I started modeling and I was into fashion, and he's like, why aren't you in New York City? So I was like, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But the rent and how am I going to make it there, in a big city, as this, just myself coming from a small town. But I decided to apply to Parsons,
Okay.
one of the biggest fashion schools, and I got in. So I was like, okay,
Wow.
I guess I'm doing this.
Wow.
So
wow.
take us through the first fashion event you attended and what appealed to you. Like, what was really exciting about it? Like, was there a moment when fashion events really interested you for the first time?
Yeah, that was when I actually did Miami Swim Week.
Okay.
That's what would really interest me in the fashion. I love fashion in New York City, but swimwear is kind of like what I'm really interested in.
Yeah.
I feel like there's like a lot that can be done with fashion, like swimwear couture.
Totally.
So when I went over there, I did a show, and that really opened my eyes to be like, maybe I can do this.
You were walking in it, or?
No, I had my designs in Miami Swim Week.
Wow.
Yes.
When did you first start designing swimwear?
This was when I was in high school, actually.
Wow.
That's when I did cyber school for 2 years.
Okay.
I recommend it. So I
Cyber school.
Yeah, it was online school.
Oh, okay. I had never heard that, cyber school.
Yeah. Yeah, so it gave me more time. You don't have to deal with study hall. You have like an hour to focus maybe on something you want to be passionate about.
Right.
And I started it in 2016.
Wow. And what was like kind of the genesis behind that? Like, what, did you just not like any of the swimwear you were buying, or?
So actually, when I started modeling, when I was around like 16, 15, I did travel a lot for swimwear companies, and I decided why can't I make my own, I don't really like what I'm wearing. It's so basic, so I was
Right.
like, let me...
Where's the coolest place you traveled to?
Hawaii. And Italy.
And they paid for all that?
Yes.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
And I was like, this is like free trip, so I was just like, why not bring my own swimwear with me and shoot that on the side, and
Right.
obviously, shoot for them, but
Right.
kind of made it like a
Wow.
partnership.
And they didn't know about that.
No, well, they were supportive of it.
Right. Wow.
Oh, cool. Swimwear.
That's really awesome.
So
then
you go to Miami Swim Week. What's the moment where you're like, this needs to happen in New York, and I can be the one to put this on in New York?
So it didn't like really happen in Miami. I was just kind of like, there was a lot happening when I did it. It was during COVID, so obviously, it wasn't going to be like the best show possible.
Yeah.
But, like the models, they were MIA, some of them were drinking, they're nowhere to be found. And I'm just like, I'm like so young, I don't know what I'm doing here. There's no one, to help me. Everything didn't go as planned. So I was just like, there has to be a better way. Like, I paid so much for this, so aren't I getting more, So when I got back home, that's when I discovered, I moved back to my building.
Yeah.
And there was a pool, and I'm like, I have a swimmer brand. So I was like, So I marinated the idea, and that's what happened.
Wait, so at Miami Swim Week, there were people who were flown down to perform, and they were MIA drinking at Live or something.
Yeah, no, they weren't drinking at Live. But backstage, they had the girls' alcohol, and I was like, oh, this is different, and I'm like, well, I'm next, so where are my models, and they were MIA, and I was like, this is
That's
horrible.
ridiculous.
So we had to grab, whoever we can. It was just very not professional.
Yeah,
Had you
that's
met an
ridiculous.
event organizer before? Like, why were you so confident about just doing it yourself off the bat?
Because nobody can work harder than me.
Wow.
That's
Amen.
why, yeah.
Amen. That's awesome. And so New York Swim Week happens, you come back, you're like, this needs to exist in New York, a better version of it needs to exist. And what was kind of the first step of like, all right, I'm gonna do this? Like, what was the first thing you had to do to make it a reality?
Honestly, I just had to, I'm really good at PowerPoint presentations. So I created something, that would sell my idea to them, and I went down and was like, hey, I want to do my swimwear show at this pool, like we can collaborate, it's something new. And they were like, well, we're looking for an event coordinator. So I was like, okay, what if I can do the swim show and I'll do your events, and just work out that way.
What's the first step? Is it the production, or is it getting the models together? How do you put on a fashion event?
Well, you definitely need designers. So that was my first step, because if you don't have any designers, there's nothing you can even start with. So I just found designers, and Miami Swim Week helped me by, meeting people. So I just called everyone from there and just researched, and they believed in me.
Why do you need designers? Do they do the promotion, or does it just give the legitimacy to the event? Like, why did you know designers are the first step?
Because if you don't have swimwear designers, there's no show. So you need, something
for the
present.
runway and stuff.
Yes.
Got you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
And then how'd you go? So you had the designers, you had the venue, then how'd you go about finding the models?
The models, it's pretty easy. If you just do like casting call, it seems like a whole swarm of women are like, yay,
Really?
It's New York City, everyone wants to feel like there's someone, so it's very easy to find. And plus I worked with like MMG and like Genetics, State, Wilhelmina, and I reach out to them like if anyone's interested. I had an open call.
These are modeling agencies?
Yes.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. And so what's a casting, do you have like a Google form, a landing page? Like what is a casting call? Like what does that mean?
Yeah, no, so I just posted like a Google form on the social media that we created, I created, but, and just, opened it, called.
And opened it.
Yeah.
Wow. And so you had like 0 followers, nothing on there. And
Yeah,
you
I
just
started
do
with
this.
no followers, and now I'm around like 3,000, so it
Wow.
grows like every day, constantly.
Wow.
Just getting the name out there.
Wow.
So you were the first main swimwear event in New York. If I was trying to make it big in the video game industry or the culinary industry, and I was the first to do an event week in a city, what are some of the big pitfalls that you encountered that I should look out for when I'm starting out?
Well, you are the underdog, so you are taking on like a lot of risk because you don't know. You're kind of making something out of nothing. So when you're dealing with people's money as well, you want to make sure that you're like giving them value in what you are, telling them. So that's what you have to take on, and I think that's probably like the hardest thing is to be able to say, hey, I'm gonna give you X, Y, and Z. You have to follow through because someone's paying you to do what you are telling them and giving them this vision.
Totally. When you were in high school, were you the girl who's innovating and putting together like sick parties for everyone, or were you kind of the outcast and now this is what you're doing to get back at that?
No, I was always the one that had like the extravagant parties.
Really?
What were they like?
Well, my 21st birthday party, it was Tokyo themed. I went off Gossip Girl. I don't know if you've ever seen that show, but we had like Guitar Hero, sushi everywhere, I went always full out anything.
Wow.
So you think you were just born to be an event organizer? Like it's your calling?
So, yes.
Wow. And what's the most fulfilling part for you? Is it bringing people together, or is it contributing to the industry?
It's bringing people together, and I love meeting new people. There's so many, like, especially in New York, there's so many, like, creative people that have, so much potential in different industries, like, we can connect and maybe work together in the future.
Yeah. One of your biggest goals is to build your personal brand. And I think your personal brand is almost bigger than the Swim Week brand in a sense. You have a ton of followers.
Yes.
Where do you rank events as a marketing channel compared to just making traditional social media content? Like, is it worth all the effort to put on an event? Why wouldn't you just take the traditional route of putting out a bunch of TikToks? Like, how does an event help really rocket power your personal brand?
Oh, okay, yeah. New York Swim Week has opened so many doors for my personal brand, like with sponsors and even getting jobs for myself, meeting new people, and just opening like new doors for me. Like the show has made me into someone that I never could been if I was just staying in, Hermitage,
Totally.
PA.
Yeah. So for someone else that's trying to grow their personal brand, you'd recommend events as a way to like speed up the process?
Oh, of course. You're doing an event, you're bringing some people together, and they're like, who did this? And then it's like, oh, you did, and just keeps opening doors.
And was there a strategy behind like putting it under the guise of a larger brand like New York Swim Week? Is it more beneficial to come up with a company like that, or should you just call it your own thing like Evita's party?
I feel like you have to do it in some way of something to give people value, because obviously, if you say your name, it's like, well, who are you,
Yeah.
Like everyone loves an experience, so like putting on a fashion show just brings people together in general. They want to see fashion, and also we have bikinis, beautiful girls, different, styles, and I think that just helps a lot more.
Yeah, totally. I'll never forget the swim week that I came to last year. insane. Like when you walked in, you see that you had the runway over the pool,
Yes.
and the music's playing, and then you had some special guests. I know I got a selfie with Wyclef Jean. Pretty lit. I never met him.
That's awesome.
How'd you get him there? Like, was that difficult?
So actually, there's a funny story behind that. So my friend, he was like, hey, like I have someone like interested, like their wife wants to put their designs in your show. And I'm like, yeah, there's 12 designers right now. I'm like, I'm not really, like pushing this. So he's like, come to my restaurant, like we'll have dinner, whatever. So I'm like, am I gonna say, food? So I was like, sure. So, come eat dinner. And then he brings Wyclef to the table, like, hey, he was like, hey, my wife wants to be in the show. And I was like, there's not really enough room.
Did you know who he was?
No, I didn't know who he was, and it was so bad. And after he left, my partner I was working with, she was like, do you not know who that was? And I was like, no. She's like, that's Wyclef Jean. I'm like, oh, perfect. Let me just cancel my show. But it all worked out. His wife did the show. Obviously, showed up, and yeah.
That's dope. What type of impact does that have on the brand overall? Like, did it really legitimize New York Swim Week, or just like a cool add-on?
I definitely think it was a cool add-on. He did say, we have him in a video and saying, oh, I love the show and everything. There's people asking, he's coming back again. It definitely helps, but the whole show itself speaks for itself.
That's dope. What's your favorite Wyclef song?
Obviously the Shakira one.
I think something you're really good at is getting like brands and sponsors involved, right? And I think a lot of early event organizers have an issue with like making sure that brands know the legitimacy they have or like what value they'll provide. So what does it look like when you're trying to get, a really credible brand involved? Wilhelmina models necessarily for the models, or for like a brand that's going to be a swimwear brand involved, or maybe one of the sponsors on the event? Like, how are you going after them? How are you, what's the first step in like getting that brand to be involved with you guys?
Yeah, of course. It's honestly like who you know and how you present yourself. So if you have a connect, or if you don't, I recommend like putting together like a small deck of like what you have to offer, what you can bring, and what you can guarantee for them, and kind of put together like the show itself. Like, it's going to be a fashion show. We can put you on the wall for this, that, We had Smart Water sponsor us last year, which gave us all the water, which was amazing. And you just have to honestly just be confident in your brand, because if you're passionate about it, someone is going to believe in you.
And so you reached out to Smart Water?
Yes. So I actually knew, my first show, I had Hint Water sponsor me, and the lead with that, they actually moved to Smart Water.
Oh,
so that's how it just led to that.
And Hint, you reached out to them, or they reached out to you?
So Hint Water, I had to connect with them through a mutual friend. So I reached out personally, and then Smart Water, I reach out to them through the other connect as well. So it's honestly, once you know someone, the ball just keeps rolling like a snowball. You keep meeting new people.
Of course. Wow. What's like the main value that you're telling these companies that you're going to provide to them to get them really excited about being involved with you guys?
Yeah, of course. I say experience, value, and exposure. I know exposure gets like thrown over too much, like nobody wants that. It's not paying bills. But with the content I create personally, and with the people and the production I bring, like I will guarantee that. And the value is because I care about everything I do, so I will guarantee everything I tell you will be done. And yeah, so we say that.
I want to bring more legitimacy and credibility to myself, but I'm just starting off in the event space. Are there any hacks to make myself seem like a bigger organizer than I really am?
I think if you become like social media savvy, if you have like your own public figure, like I am on myself with social media, like you have credibility there. But like if you do the show itself, you have, the show events, and I have my own brand, plus I work. And if you're just a hustler, I feel like it brings more credibility if you have more things to offer and put yourself, out there. I don't have like the exact answer. I just feel like maybe just you can't take anything personally. If something doesn't work out, maybe it's not worth it if someone isn't taking you seriously, and it always ends up, working in the end.
Do you have like a social media strategy that you go by? Do you have like a posting schedule or certain content you put out that does more successfully, or things that you do to grow like your personal and the New York Swim Week brand?
Yeah, I think if you post something out there that like someone is like learning from, and you're taking something out of it, because like anyone can be pretty, anyone can like do cool, edits, but like what is someone learning from the video? I think that helps a lot.
For sure. And what do you think that social media has done for you personally?
I think it definitely helped me, like you said, more credibility with my own personal brand. But also, when I had my swim show, like no one really knew like who was the creator until I posted on the website, and that's how they found me. But I don't think it it helped a lot in my show because I can post, for getting ticket sales and stuff. But the show itself, I honestly just took over,
Yeah, so Evita, for most people your age, if they have a 9-to-5 job, their like stress levels are probably pretty flatlined, or maybe there's like a review that's coming up with their job or something like that. But for event organizers, especially someone like yourself, where there's 2 marquee events every year, your stress levels probably go from almost nothing to like everything is hitting the fan, and you have all these people that you got to coordinate 3 days before the show, and then it probably drops off the day after the show. So talk about, is there a weird depression period after the show, or how do you deal with being in this really intense planning phase and then going to the event's over and there's really nothing to do?
Yeah, so that's what I feel like people don't talk about. I mean, there is like I feel like event depression.
Interesting.
Because I actually went through it, like going like with my show, like putting all my energy in there. And then after like 2 weeks, there's no emails or anyone like, asking this, that, and you're just like, wow, like what do I do now, So I think it's important to just always have like something happening or an event you're like at least thinking of, so that, it doesn't happen.
Is it like a breakup where you're just sitting in bed eating ice cream, like thinking about the event?
Yeah, it's actually, I'm like, wow, like what do I do now? Like, but then you just get back going. You gotta.
So are you gonna plan to do more events regularly so that it's more of like a constant thing throughout the year where you're building the brand, or do you like the cycle of really big build-ups that you work towards?
I think for like the following years, I'm definitely gonna like have like something in store, because I feel like after the show I was like, I don't even know where I'm doing this show. Like this year I have different venues interested.
Yeah.
So I'm just try to secure like a 3-year venue. So I like go to bed after the show and I'm like, all right, I have a show ready to go next year. You know what I mean? Not like, I don't even know what's up.
For sure. When is the next one? Is it just this year?
Yeah, so it'll be July 29th.
July 29th. And what's in store for that one? Anything special?
Definitely. I think we have a different venue in store for that, and I might do it a following week at the original spot.
Wow.
But just bringing in more exposure and creating like a way bigger experience than last year.
Let's talk a little bit about funding. Obviously, the venue you had was incredible. You had a lot of different like production aspects going on. How do you go from nothing to something in terms of figuring out how to secure the venue, how to get the production team behind everything? Did you have to do some weird negotiating? How did that work?
Yeah, so of course, like with the venue itself, I lived in the building, and I'm like, there's a pool, I have a bikini brand, like presented the idea, got the, job, and we worked on doing like a show. So after that, I'm like, okay, well, I need designers, etc., and like the production team, makeup artists. So with the production team, it took me a while to get there because I had to be like, oh, I need LED walls. So everyone jumps to that. But then once you're like, I need a runway over the pool in New York City, they're like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Until I found a guy, and then like 2 weeks before, canceled. So I had this one last hope, and he believed in me, and I have a production team for life. But with the budgeting with that, the runway for my first year was around like 10 grand, and like over, the whole expense around 15 grand. And I'm just like, how am I gonna pay for this, So I didn't really have like a budgeting because it was kind of like my first, experience. But once you find all your expenses and you can create the ticket prices and how you can make that revenue at least break even, that was kind of, how I figured out the first years.
Did you have any like outside investors, or you just kind of covered up front expenses yourself?
I just hope for the best for myself the
Really?
first year. Yeah, I did take a risk on myself. I'm like, well, I didn't want to ask for any money because I didn't want to owe anyone anything if it hit the fan.
Right.
I want to be my own, liability.
Right. Of course.
So I just took a risk on myself, and it just worked out. If you're persistent and you have the drive, you can make it happen.
Same thing this year?
No, this year I'm definitely going to be more budgeting, trying to actually make some sort of profit. And I do have a couple partners interested, but obviously I can't say right now.
Of course. So, originally you set out to do this because you didn't, to build your own swim brand because you didn't like the brands that existed. Now you're working with other brands that kind of align with the vision that you have. What's the New York Swim Week 5 years from now? What's the mission going to look like? What's the event going to look like?
Yeah. So basically, in New York Swim Week I'm trying to take over the swimwear industry, it created to more of like a lifestyle, because like when you go on vacation to like a destination, you know, people are buying stuff to, you know, like be someone else, like a new fantasy, like who do you want to be in like the Caribbean or Mykonos, you know? So that's kind of the experience that I want to create, and it's not just something you like lay out and swim in or like take a photo in. It could be like a couture, like you wear something in Ibiza at like a party. So I'm trying to take over like the country and making, you know, different swimmer shows in different states. But New York City has happened to be the first stop.
Would you change the name from New York Swim Week?
I don't know yet. Obviously, I think my New York Swim Week might be like the main OG, but I might create something different that can go in different states.
Given like the you know, New York Swim Week, New York Fashion Week, kind of the similarity of the brands, have you ever gotten any like backlash from the New York Fashion Week people?
No, I haven't.
Really?
They kind of like staying in their lane because I'm the swim show and they're the fashion show, so
Right.
we've kind of been.
Really? So they never give you any
friendly.
cease and desist or anything like that?
No, not yet.
No, not yet. Not yet. Maybe
We might
maybe
have
this year.
later.
We
There
talked
go.
a lot about production and the brands that are present. What are some things that you pay attention to besides the set that make a great experience for the people that come to New York Swim Week?
You mean besides like the fashion show
Like,
itself?
is it lighting? Does the smell matter when you walk in? Is it like the hors d'oeuvres that someone brings
Music.
up? I remember seeing you the minute I walked into the events. That was very like heartwarming and made it feel personable. But what are some other aspects?
Yeah, definitely. Because I feel like when you said personal with me, like I'm more hands-on, so I'm always there. I was moving chairs. Like they're like, wait, you're the founder of this? I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to get you a good seat. So I'm always there for anyone. I think just the energy and the experience, and everyone is just who's there is like they want to be there, you know?
Yeah.
And I try to find the right crowd with that. And yeah, I feel like that the energy, honestly.
Did you source a team that gives that energy off, or was it more of like a one-man show that you just kill everything?
No, definitely I had a team. I had a small team, and I still have them. They're going to be working with me this year as well.
Nice.
But yeah, I have my right hand, and now I have another, I guess, my left hand. I don't know, I have two people that are like my go-tos, but yeah.
That's
it really
awesome.
helps me.
What do you think is a big mistake you made year one that you would have told yourself now to look out for?
Will be probably budgeting. 'Cause
Budgeting.
I think I was too like there for like, obviously I loved it. I'm doing this for the love of fashion, but at the end of the day, you know, like we need to pay people where everyone makes money.
Right.
I think I just feel like if I could budget better, I could have made it profitable maybe for more people, but
Right.
we all learn.
Was there a crazy moment where you're just like, oh my gosh, this is not going to work out?
Yes, the first year.
Really?
Yeah, everything was going great, you know, and then apparently there was a hurricane coming to
Wow.
New York City. I'm like, oh, perfect. This makes sense.
A hurricane in New York.
Yeah, it was really crazy, but it ended up working out. I mean, as an event coordinator, you kind of have to be like either yes or no, and I was like, we're doing this no matter what. So we did it, and the rain came right after The Last Designer, which
Wow.
was my show, which worked out. And I mean, at the end of the day, no one knows anything is wrong unless you tell them, even
Yeah.
though it's supposed to be 2 hours
It's a great
longer.
point. It's a great point, yeah.
So it worked out.
That's awesome. Was there like anything that you know, that happened that, you know, you think that if it hadn't happened, you would have had a much more successful show?
No, because I feel like it was all needed to happen, so I would
Right.
learn. Because if it didn't happen, I probably would have made a mistake later on.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. That's really awesome.
All right, we got some speed round questions. If you can answer them as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Get
Evita
ready.
from 2 years ago, you haven't done a single event yet. What's the biggest piece of advice to her that you'd give?
I say work harder and cut out any negative energy, because work harder, I feel like there's some times where I could have, you know, learned more, travel, open my perspectives up to different things, and cut out negative energy because, you know, you don't need it there, and if it's not giving you value, then I say cut it off so it can cut your dreams in half, so.
Dope. Who's your biggest inspiration in the events and branding and fashion world that you looked up to?
So honestly, I'm gonna say myself. I feel like I know that sounds conceited, but it's not. I don't really read books or listen to podcasts like maybe I should, you know, be more like, you know, better at my job or life. But, you know, I say myself because, I mean, I've been through a lot in my life, and I'm obviously not gonna get into that, but I mean, everyone has, but I've used my trauma into like passion and ambition to create these things that I love. And I kind of just made myself my own inspiration.
That's awesome. So you went through a ton to get here. if you were talking to a teenage girl right now who's super into fashion and she wants to be how you are now, what's the biggest piece of advice that you'd give them?
I say don't take any advice from anyone that's not in your industry. Because I listen to people that aren't in the industry saying you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do that, but they have no experience. You know what I mean? Like, they're just giving you based on their opinion. So I say just do whatever feels right.
That's dope. All right, well, shill out your brand and tell everyone where they can find the next New York Swim Week event and how to follow you on socials and everything like that.
Yeah, so you can follow us on ny.swimweek for our Instagram or nyswimweek.com to find out more about the show, if you want to be a model, designer, sponsors, or just come enjoy.
Dope. All right, well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and hopefully we'll see you on another hosted episode soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.